Okay, we are all set and good to go. Our court reporter today is Shelley. And she's sitting off to the side here, so she's all set and ready to go. Since there is a little bit of a delay this morning, I do have your guys' names typed up there, but if you could just announce your name before you speak, since she's going to be typing a lot and not going to be able to look up a lot. You guys could each just announce your name before you speak. That would help a lot.
Great. Are we otherwise ready to get started?
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, with that, the rest of the board members on ready. Al, Glenn.
Yes. Ready.
Sure.
Great. Well, with that, my name's Ben Johnson. I'm the chairman. I'm going to call to order our September 8th, 2020 meeting for the State Board of Equalization. Also on this call is Bob Schiffmacher, Glenn Trowbridge, who are the other members of the State Board of Equalization. We have Michelle Briggs, who's Deputy Attorney General and counsel to this board. We also have Jeff Mitchell, who's Deputy Director of the Department of Taxation and serves as Secretary of this board. Jeff, will you please introduce your staff?
Yes, good morning and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Mitchell for the record. As mentioned, I am Deputy Director for the Department of Taxation over Local Government Services and am serving as staff today. Also serving as staff is Christina Griffiths, Denisa Johnston, and Hector Sepulveda. As mentioned, our court reporter is Shelley Loomis.
Great, thank you very much, Jeff. The way it's going to work today is for the cases, we'll have the assessor's office identify that we'll call the case, Jeff will, then we'll have the assessor's office identify the property, then the petitioner will get 15 to present their case, the respondent will get 15 minutes to present their case, and then the petitioner will get a final 5 minutes to rebut, close their arguments. Then we'll close the hearing, the board will deliberate and render a decision at this time. So with that said, I've got Michelle Briggs, who will swear in anyone that plans to testify. We're gonna swear in before each one, make sure everyone has been sworn in before each case as well, because we realize that people may jump on the call midway through in the assessor's offices. Everyone may not be in the conference room now, but with that, Michelle, can you swear in anyone that plans to testify today that's presently on the call?
Sure. If anyone who plans to testify could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank
you. Yes.
Great. Next, I'd like to move on to public comment. With that, Christina, if you'll let me know if anyone's on the line presently that has called in specifically for public comment. We'll also leave it open for anyone to address that's already logged in.
I think we are in the clear, Chairman.
Okay, great. There will also be public comment again at the end of the hearing prior to concluding. So as we don't believe there's anyone now, move on to calling our first case. Jeff, will you please call the first case on the agenda?
Thank you. Jeff Mitchell for the record. Up first is agenda item C for possible action, appeals from action of the County Board of Equalization pursuant to NRS 361-400 for the tax year 2019-20, 2021 secured roll, or the 2019-20 unsecured roll. First on the agenda is case number 2116, RNDI Investments, LLC. The respondent is the Humboldt County Assessor. Property type is commercial. The petitioner is represented by Ray Sharp, who is the managing member of RNDI. Proper notice of hearing can be found on page 1 of your State Board of Equalization packet. But first, for your consideration, there was new evidence that was submitted on this case.
Great, thank you, Jeff. The first item I would like to take is the new evidence, which it looks like is 4 pages and looks like a record of the county board. It looks like the agenda from the county board for Humboldt County. I'd like to hear from, and I'm not sure who this was submitted by, if it was, it looks like it was a taxpayer, but I'd like to hear from the parties as to why they think we should submit or accept this new evidence. And if it's helpful to either of the parties, we can have Michelle read our standard for accepting new evidence. Let's go. And I think that might be helpful, Michelle, if you can give us the standard for the findings we need to make in order to accept new evidence.
Sure. Can I get some clarification? So the petition says it's a direct appeal. Is it not a direct appeal?
My understanding is it's a direct appeal.
So it's not new evidence because there was no record from the underlying case at the county if it's a direct appeal. So for evidence submitted for direct appeals, it's supposed to be provided 10 days prior. So I don't know when this was submitted, and I guess we would just need some more details on that.
Michelle, this is Jeff Mitchell for the record. If I may interject, it was an appeal that was heard at the county. It was just filed on a direct appeal form, but it was originally heard at the county.
Okay, so it is an appeal from a county board decision. So the standard would be 7 days prior, and it has to be evidence that was not available at that time.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And then to each of the parties, let's hear from the taxpayer first relative to why they think we should accept this new evidence.
Would that be me? I'm not used to this stuff.
Okay, are
Ray
you?
Sharp. Yes, I am Ray Sharp.
Yeah, Ray, so it looks like you submitted new evidence and we have to approve allowing it in for our consideration. So we just would like to know what the basis was of submitting it and why you feel it meets the standard that Michelle just read.
Actually, I have not submitted anything since I submitted the taxpayer petition for direct appeal. It was one complete package, and I have not forwarded anything since that time. That was done back, I believe, in January or February.
Okay.
So I don't
That's
know who has the new information.
Okay, in the 4 pages that were submitted, it looks like it's just a record of the agenda for the county board and noticing thereof evidence that the agenda was properly noticed. But let's go to the county and see if they can provide any further clarification or if they have any objections to allowing in this new evidence.
Andy Heiser, Chief Deputy, for the record. I don't know where this came from. I don't have any objections. That's what it looks like. It is just the agenda for the county hearing.
Great. Well, with that, board, I'd like your guys' thoughts. I'm comfortable with allowing it in because that's public information. I don't know why it's being submitted to us at this time, but I don't see how.
Okay. This is Ray Sharp, and that was submitted back in February, so I don't know why there's a confusion of it would be recently submitted.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Board, I'm ready for your thoughts and or a motion to allow it in.
This is Glenn Trowbridge. I've read this thing a couple of times trying to figure out what was new information. I came to the conclusion it's not really new information, but I have no problem introducing it if the only benefit is it's going to show that there was a hearing at the county level, and we all know that. So,
Great. Is that a motion?
to admit it,
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to admit the alleged new information to the file.
Great. And do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Bob Schiffmacher.
Great. Any comments by the board? Seeing as none, let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries 3-1. Next, let's move on to the hearing the case itself. So first, I would like to have the assessor's office identify the property.
Andy Heiser, Chief Deputy for the record. This is a commercial property, sits on 3.19 acres, just a couple miles outside of Winnemucca city limits on West Winnemucca Boulevard. The property name we have as Apartments West End. This was a multi-unit piece that had three detached single-family residences with 2 detached multi-unit motel style buildings. Had 2 wells, 5 septic tanks, and that's about it.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Now back to Ray. You've got 15 minutes to present your case.
You mean Ray Sharp?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I've sent a letter with this. Should I just read that letter? It's pretty much what I prepared to deal with it.
However you feel best. I've read the letter. I believe the other board members have read the letter as well. So it's really, I mean, any additional information you want to add, if you want to read the letter, by all means, you can do that. Generally, we're looking for just additional context, clarity.
Okay.
So,
Okay, this is Ray Sharp. I understand now. I'm not used to this stuff, so I apologize for the fumbling.
oh, no worries.
Basically, this property was obviously, the taxes were lowered at the appeal at the city level because of the time frame. This appeal happens to be for a year prior to that, and evidently they did not have the authority to do that without going to this level. So once I appealed it at that level, they were kind enough to give me all the information and point me towards the forms to initiate this direct appeal to the state. So that's why we're here today instead of doing it on the county levels. There's some rules that caused it to happen. But this property for many years was run down. We're out-of-state investors, so we didn't have a lot of up close contact with it. Evidently, it was owned and operated by the local drug lords down there in Winnemucca, and they had allowed it to dilapidate to a point that is basically useless. The 2 wells and the dwellings and the septic tanks are pretty much useless and need to be destroyed, torn down, and the land basically cleared to its level. So that's what my whole point is that the property has been, for many, many, many years, we've been paying standard taxes on it and not realizing that what a condition it was in. So what we're trying to do is get this to reduce to the same level of taxation that it is currently after the local appeal there. Hopefully that makes sense, but it's because the property is just basically useless and needs to be bulldozed.
Okay, and then my understanding is taxable value for the 2021 tax year before you appealed was $234,214, and then as a result of going through the county board process, it got lowered to $140,374,000. Is that correct understanding?
That sounds about right, yes, sir.
Okay, and then when you appealed, because we strictly adhere to timelines just because they're statutory, but this all came about. So you've got the 2021 tax year, everyone agreed on that, and now you're asking for the 1920, which would be last tax year, essentially, to see if there's any way to get some relief for a prior tax year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions of the board before I go to back to Andy and Humboldt County?
This is Bob Schiffmacher. Ray, if I read your letter and the attached documentation correctly, it sounded as though you believe that the 2019-20 appeal was withdrawn erroneously. Is that correct?
No, sir, no. It was because of the time frame.
Oh,
It would have
okay.
had to been filed by a certain time, and when I brought it to the Winnemucca Assessor's Office, they explained that to me, made perfect
Okay.
sense. Yeah, I have no argument with why we're here.
Okay,
I was just
okay.
trying to give-
I may have misunderstood.
Yeah, I have no argument with why we're here or why they could not do it. I mean, it's pretty plain once they were kind enough to point it out to me.
I had the same impression, Bob, that the agreement between the parties was for both tax years to accept an agreement was for both tax years, but unbeknownst to the taxpayer, it did include the 20 or 1920, but I don't know if that's relevant any longer based on the testimony we've received so far.
Oh, yeah, I was not aware of that. I'm sorry if that was already applied to the years that were in question right now. I was not aware of that.
Not
I'm not-
applied. There was just a comment in your letter that explained that you hadn't realized that what you were signing applied to both years.
Okay.
This is a letter dated February 5th, 2020.
Page 18 of the record.
Yeah.
Yes. So as long as we are clear as to what we're doing here, and everybody's on the same page, I'm satisfied.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just gonna ask the clarification question. It looked, if I understand everything correctly, the property owner submitted their appealed the 2 tax years, but that submittal was made timely for the 2021 tax year, not timely for the 1920 tax year. And therefore the assessor's office said, we are going to agree on the 2021 tax year because that's timely and we think there's validity to what you're saying, but we can't do anything for the 1920 tax year because that's past the deadline. Okay. Well, perfect. Well, I appreciate that. Any further questions, board? Or are we ready to hear from Andy?
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Ready to hear from Andy.
Well, Andy, we'd love to hear from you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Andy Heiser again, for the record, Humboldt County Chief Deputy. So we did, the 2021 value was heard, and we did agree upon, we took a site visit out to the property and realized there was some dilapidated units out there or non-livable units, and we did make corrections that the petitioner did agree with. For the 1920 year, it was on our agenda. Our deputy district attorney decided not to hear the case in Humboldt County per NRS 361-357, that the appeal was not filed by January 15th of 2019. And we were in agreement with that. We felt the petitioner, through some documentation that we had, was not current owner of the property at that time as well. We have a grant bargain and sale deed. And I first want to apologize that I did not provide a packet to you guys. Our DDA, District Deputy Attorney, would not allow us to submit a packet. We knew it potentially was going to go to the state. So my apologies for not having any of this in front of you guys. We do have a grant bargain and sale deed dated 2018, doc number 4664, which went from RNDI, the petitioner, to Lucian. They own that property up until November of 2019, which then I believe they defaulted on the property and it went back to a deed in lieu of foreclosure back to the petitioner, which was November of 2019. So like I'd said, that time frame was, the ownership was Lucian when the 2019-20 appeal should have been filed. We also received a sales questionnaire returned from the petitioner on this property at the date of the sale. Just a few highlights: that was the price a fair market price? The box was checked yes. Was the residence livable? The box was checked yes. And the condition of the property was checked average. So those were the information we had at the time of the sale to have the understanding that we felt we were had the right value for the property until the appeal was sent by the petitioner for the 2021 year, where we could go make a site visit and realize the value was incorrect for that year.
Great. And the submittal, it was all one submittal appealing 2 tax years, and was submitted, it looked like, in January of 2020.
Correct. The case was one case number for the 2021 year and the 1920 year.
Okay. But nothing submitted prior to January 15th of 2019, which would have been required under statute to appeal the 1920 tax year.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Those are my questions. Anything else from the board members? Seeing as no other questions from the board, Ray, you've got 5 minutes to rebuttal, close, and just what we're seeing here, it's that date that's the issue from our end. If we did find for some reason that the untimely appeal should be considered, ownership becomes an issue, but I don't see that here. And I think someone might have given you some bad advice that there's anything we could do relative to the late filed appeal, because that standard that precluded the county board from hearing it would apply here as well.
So it's a moot point. Is that what you're saying?
From everything I can see, obviously the board needs to vote, needs to deliberate, but if there was, and all I was trying to do was give you the courtesy of being able to let us know if we're misunderstanding the record, or there was some reason that appeal wasn't filed by January 15th of 2019 to timely hear the 1920 tax year appeal.
Okay, my understanding was, and I was told by one of the people that, I don't know if they're on this call or not, but they were for the assessor's office, that because it wasn't done on a particular date, that anything after that had to go through this state process. That's first of all. Second of all, the one gentleman said that he had a document from me that stated the residences were livable and they were in average condition. That document didn't come from me. I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
And so I contested it, that it's legitimate because it did not come from me. The last part is, if in 2021 taxes, they reduced it because of the dilapidated condition of the properties, that didn't happen overnight. So this property has been receiving a tremendous amount of taxes for a lot of years on condition that it did not warrant. So outside of that, I really don't know what to present to you.
No, and that's helpful clarification from our end. Board members, do you have any questions of the property owner? Seeing as no questions, then I'm going to close the hearing and we'll deliberate amongst the board. So with that, I would welcome any comments, thoughts from members of the board.
This is Glenn Trowbridge. I'm sorry. This one seems like the applicant filed the appeal in a timely manner for the 2020 year, but and he was under the impression that 19 to 20 was also covered, but because it was untimely for the previous year, it didn't. I still think that the arguments would remain the same, that the property was overvalued because of the condition.
Yeah.
But this is Bob Schiffmacher. While that may be true, the timeline is set for codified in statute regarding the date on which the appeals must be filed. And in this case, the filing for the 2021 tax year was timely. For the 1920 year, it was not. And so my suggestion would be that the appeal of the 2019-2020 tax year be denied primarily because of its untimely filing.
I'm going to come back to you shortly, Bob. Al, do you have any comments before Bob makes a motion?
No, I think both Glenn and Bob are on point.
Yeah, and my only comment is, unfortunately here, clearly the properties probably did exist in a condition that would have warranted probably an appeal with merit for the prior tax year. Just the way of our process, there's timelines, and it's a burden of the property owner to make a timely filing for an appeal, and that's something this board strictly interpreted. I do feel, I think it's unfortunate that the taxpayer from someone heard that we could potentially overturn the county relative to this issue. There's just nothing that we can do. The timeline's a timeline, and we've strictly interpreted that. But I'm ready for a motion, Bob.
I move that in case number 2116, RNDI Investments for the tax year of 2019-20, that the appeal be denied because of a untimely filing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further comments? Seeing as none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Jeff, will you call the next case?
Thank you. Jeff Mitchell for the record. Up next is case number 20121, Shara Ann Borst. This is residential property located within the Carson City. The petitioner is Shara Ann, and the respondent is the Carson County Assessor. The proper notice of hearing can be found on page 83, and there is new evidence that was submitted with this case that for your review.
Great. Is the property owner on the call? Or the taxpayer?
It does not appear that the property owner is on the call at this time.
Have we properly noticed her? Did she indicate she planned to attend today?
We did not receive indication, but the proper notice can be found on page 83 of the State Board of Equalization packet of this hearing.
Question then for the board relative to procedure here. We can move this to the end and call this again the very last case today, see if she does appear on the phone call, just to give her that courtesy in case she is planning on calling in, or we can hear it based on the record that was submitted right now. I'd look for guidance from the board relative to how you guys want to proceed.
This is Bob Schiffmacher. Given the unusual nature of the hearings this year, I would suggest, in an effort to err on the side of the taxpayer, that we allow this case to continue until the end of business today, and at that point recall it. And if the taxpayer is unavailable or has not signed in at that point, then we hear the case based upon the information that's in front of us.
I would agree. And if that's a motion, I'll second it.
I don't think we need a motion there, but I just wanted your guys' thoughts to make sure you guys were in concurrence, which it sounds like we are. So Jeff, the guidance of the board there is let's wait and hear that. Let's call it again the last case today, just to give abundance of caution. Leeway. Yeah, that's the right word. Thank you to the property owner. So with that, Jeff, will you call the next case?
Excuse me. This is the court reporter. And during the motion, he froze. And so there's a portion that's not on any recording because it froze, so it didn't come out. So, and what I've been doing in these Zoom hearings, when this happens, is I put that, it froze, so you guys know that. I mean, I can't put something I can't hear in.
Was that,
I would be happy to rephrase and repeat the motion.
and Shelley, was that for 2116? That was the last case that we
Just
heard.
now.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
just,
there's not going to be a motion there. I think we have the authority to move around the schedule without a motion. So that's fine. It froze, and then we'll come back and we'll hear this case at the end of business day. So with that, Jeff, will you please call the next case?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Mitchell for the record. The next case is 2151. It was noticed to be heard at 11:15 a.m. And so we are not to that time on the schedule yet. And so the taxpayer, I don't believe, is on the phone yet. And so we would need to recess until 11:15 in order to call the next case.
I don't have any issues with that. Board, do you guys have any objections or any issues with that course of action?
No problem.
No.
Well, let's recess until 11:15, so about half an hour from now. And we'll get back to it at 11:15.
Ben, might it be as easy to fill the gap with another case? Or are the cases all agendized at a specific hour?
I think they've all agendized consecutively subsequent, but let's ask the question of Jeff. Is there anything we can do at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is an item of discussion that I would like to possibly bring forward. And it is all of the cases that are called under item E. Those are cases 2103 through 2110 respectively. They were noticed for this afternoon at 2 p.m. But due to some unforeseen weather in Texas that required some evacuations as well as some delay in May, there were some issues with notices being received and information being received from the taxpayer. There was also some interventions filed on behalf of the counties. And so it does not require a motion, but if the board wishes to remove those for the agenda, I would then reach out to those respective parties and let them know that we would reschedule that hearing. And then the only matters for consideration left on the agenda for today would be the one that was just postponed and the one that is scheduled at 11:15.
Okay. Yeah, I trust that you've reached out to Ormat, Nevada, relative to item E. Would they have any objections to us postponing this until a later date this year due to the issues for unforeseen circumstances related to weather?
All the parties that I've spoken to have been in agreement that it should be postponed. But they were properly noticed according to statute, so it is up to the board's discretion whether to proceed or to pull them off the agenda.
And I think I heard it from you. This would be direct appeals to this state. I don't know if it would be you or someone else in your department that would be presenting to our board, but does the department have any objection to us delaying these?
The department does not have any objection to the postponement.
Okay. Board, I would welcome your thoughts relative to all the cases under item E being delayed until later this year, postponed until later this year.
I'm in favor. The apocalypse that seems to have plagued us on so many fronts seems to have affected this case as well, and it is clearly beyond the taxpayers' capability to change any of it.
Yeah, I think in the same light as discussed earlier is error on the safe side, give the taxpayer every advantage.
Great. Glenn, any
I
thoughts?
wonder if it would be appropriate to determine now that these items, because of their similarity and the applicant being the same person, that we could treat these as one item. It might affect the way people prepare for the presentation.
Glenn, I think that would be something that would have to be agreed upon by both the department and the taxpayer, and given the taxpayer's absence, I don't think that we can make that determination at this point.
Well, if we could simply let the applicant know at the time we notify them that it's been postponed, that it potentially may be heard as one item.
Let's get Jeff's thought relative, because we get it's Ormat, it's mining properties, but I'm going to guess those are different mines. I don't know if the issues are the same, not the same for each of those cases. So I'd ask Jeff to weigh in.
With these being located in different counties and having received some intervention requests from the different counties, there may be unique information upon the delay of these cases that gets submitted. And so it might be something that we have discussion on once we receive all the information from all the parties on whether or not it's appropriate to call as one or separately, but we could take that under consideration and discussion with the parties as we move forward.
That would be my preference on how to proceed. Glenn, is that good for you?
That's fine.
Okay. And do we need a motion here to allow for postponement?
My understanding is no, that it's just the direction of the board that they will pull these from the agenda and the staff will then reschedule.
Yeah, that's the direction. It sounds like you've got the will of the board based on all the comments to do that. And obviously from my end, anything after you get the information, I hope that settlement discussions go on till we hear this next. In the event that that is possible, you guys are good about trying to settle, and that's, I think, the board's preference always if you guys can reach a settlement.
Thank you. And with that, there's no other business to conduct until 11:15.
Great.
This is Bob Schiffmacher. In that light, Christina, have we established a date for the next meeting?
Yes, I think it's going to be October 19th.
Do we want to go off the record? We can have a comment off the record, but I'd like to give Shelley a break if none of it goes towards the agenda items today.
I have no objection.
Okay, let's go off the record, Shelley, and then we might have just a general discussion here relative to future scheduling.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Go for it, Bob.
I'm just wondering whether we, since my control of my calendar seems to be lacking, I just wanted to make sure that I knew what our schedule appeared to be and whether, so that I get it in my calendar and make sure I'm here, since Al missed me so much last time.